Hello. Welcome to today's Life Now Inspirational Stories. We are in for a treat. My guest is truly inspiring. And I guess this is something really personal to me because I've met my guest in real life and then I went searching for her because I wanted to know more. She's an artist, a spiritual practitioner, and a space holder. I'm intrigued about my guest. Welcome, Love Hannington. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I am so honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you, love. So many different reasons why I wanted to contact you. We met at a yoga retreat
We did.
and you gave this really insightful talk about medicine, holistic medicine. And I know that you do other things. Um, so I want to get on to the holistic medicine, but do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. I guess I do a lot of things, and it's really occurred to me in a conversation very recently how all of those things really weaved and flowed into each other because I thought they were quite separate. I was an artist and a space holder and a spiritual practitioner, and I believe in a holistic sort of medicine for healing. And it's come about through my own life experiences. And it's a bit of a long story, but going back, I was probably about 22 or 23. I'm 33 now. And I was working in a virtual reality studio, an augmented reality studio. So it was very tech heavy. And that it was a really lovely, enjoyable time because I just come out of uni, which was really stressful. I'd been diagnosed with PCOS and had ovarian surgery, and my GP had quite bluntly told me, "Oh yeah, you have PCOS, endometriosis. You're probably never going to have kids." It was really flippant, and it was really quite shocking as a 21-year-old. So I was in this lovely virtual reality studio with this lovely team, and it felt like I was getting somewhere in my career. And being in that space meant I was around a lot of artists. And that was really instrumental to who I am now because it reminded me, like, oh, maybe you're not so depressed. Maybe you're just starved of creativity because, I'd constantly gone back to the doctor and it was anxiety, depression. Oh, that's a part of the PCOS. That's a part of the endometriosis. And they all got sort of grouped into one. It's just, oh, yeah, it just happens to women. There's no cure for it. This is just who you are now. We can give you some antidepressants. We can put you on talking therapy for 12 weeks, but, there's a 6 months waiting list for that type of thing. So as I started to do this creativity inspired by my colleagues, seeing them create these beautiful things, um, it sort of got into my head that like, oh, this is something maybe I want to do. So as I started to get higher paid in different companies, as I moved companies, the work just became more and more boring. So I moved from VR to apps to websites. And as it got more and more boring and higher paid and higher positions, the stress just kept piling on top to the point I'd reached sort of a breaking point where I was just feeling really unwell. I developed sciatica. I genuinely didn't know how I was going to move forward in my life, like in generally. Like, I just thought, you know, if this is life, I did what everyone told me to do. I went to uni. I got the decent job. I've now got a cool job that everyone thinks is so cool. But I don't feel like life is worthwhile right now.
And that's quite interesting that you kind of did this whole get the qualification, get that job, um, then move on up in your job. And then in between all of that, you have some health issues. And it's really important
Yeah.
because I want to just touch on that, that you went to see a doctor and they basically just grouped your health condition as one thing.
This is what
Mm.
happens. You're a woman. We can't do anything about it.
When you said that, I just kind of thought that happens to a lot of us. Like it
Mm.
really does. Like you really like hit on something that, that we just all experience. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for a lot of women that we would go for help and then this would
Mm.
be the response. And that's
Yeah.
it. There's no further kind of talk about other ways of kind of looking at what possibly could be the causes, root causes,
Yeah.
our body shapes, our body types. We're all different. And it doesn't sound like any of that
Yeah.
investigation took place with you.
None of that investigation took place, which is why I think in that sort of like next part of the story is I had to take it into my own hands. So feeling as mentally unwell as I did and physically unwell as I did, I just decided, oh, 5 years from now, I'm going to be a full-time artist. And I started at that point, I couldn't find any other help except for, well, there was the talking therapies on the NHS, which is more like CBT, not very. It was useful. I'm not going to say it wasn't useful, but it wasn't holistic. It was a sum of parts. So I started meditating. It's actually I started with mantra. Mantra is what started because when I was looking for help, that's what I found online, and it wasn't too dissimilar to when I was a teenager. I was very interested in meditation and I guess esoteric sort of different types of spiritualities. The church never sat right with me. I was always interested in something else. So the mantra saved me because I was chanting every single day. And as I was chanting every single day, I started to have more and more things come into my experience. So I had been offered the chance to work with psilocybin mushrooms, and that at the time was just that isn't something I would have gone out seeking myself, I don't think, but it had sort of come to me, and I decided, do you know what? I want to, because everything I've been told about the system is just wrong. It's fallen down. I did the right things that didn't work out. I think around the time Grenfell Tower had come down, I felt I'd gone from really trusting the government to just having that door blasted wide open. So when someone said, psilocybin mushrooms might help you, I just thought, do you know what? If everything I've been told is so wrong, maybe I don't need to fall back on the talk to Frank rhetoric. Maybe, maybe this might change my mind in a way. So I did tons and tons and tons of research on it, and it was just at that point you're just getting like corners on forums with people saying I've taken this and it's helped my mental health and blah 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 blah.
Wow.
Um,
And can you get to a
so
place of just pure desperation that it almost forces you to go out and seek?
absolutely, because I just wasn't finding any resolve in myself at that point in time, even with the therapy. It was just really difficult. So when I undertook this, I had decided that I was going to ensure that I did it properly. So I'd found some page somewhere where it said, traditionally there was this South American woman called Maria Sabina, and she would hold these ceremonies. And she would make people fast, and then I somehow got onto sort of ayahuasca methodologies, and it's you fast before you do these things. And at the time I was vegan. So I had decided to fast, like no food, 3 days before working with these mushrooms. And that was hard, but I did it. I mean, 3 days isn't much. Well, now loads of people do much longer, but at that time, that was just like that was a killer.
Mm.
So I'd fasted for 3 days, and I'd taken what was essentially boiled down to a microdose, but it blew my world wide open because while other people were sort of dancing and enjoying the music, I was sort of plunged into this darkness and ended up hearing this voice that was speaking to me. And I was asking her who she was, and she said, "You know who I am." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right," because something about her told me I knew who she was. And she sort of let me know that, I'm here for your healing, but you're actually not meant to be here. Um, I just wanted to show you this so you understand going forward what you're meant to do. I'm like, "But you haven't
No
told me anything."
way. Oh my
Yeah, and
word.
she hadn't told me anything. She's like, "No, I've told you everything." And somehow I was like, "Oh, I think you have." And I was sort of pulled back out of that experience into the room. And then my body started moving weirdly, and I had this like snake go up my spine, top of my head sort of exploded in light. That's what I was seeing. And then the whole sort of weird psychedelic feeling of all disappeared. That was it. I was like, that was so weird. I had no idea what it was. So after that, I'd done a lot of research, and there was a lot of Mahakali symbolism coming up. Everything that had sort of corresponded with what I seen in that trip, that journey. And from that point, I kid you not, plants started coming into my vision, and I would be like, "I wonder what this does. I wonder what that does."
So hold on a minute. Now,
And
prior to this, right, let
yeah,
me get this straight. Prior to this, you didn't know about what plants and what this does and what that does to be able to kind of look at alternative kind of herbs and teas and that. You didn't know what any of that
well,
was.
here's the thing. I had a slight insight of a couple, and this is only because when I was a child, and I'm talking small child, I was 7 years old, I would put together just instinctively, like, "Oh, I'm stressed out. Do you know what I need to do? I need to make a bath with herbs in it." No one had necessarily shown me how to do this. I just knew at 7 years old. So somehow, like, "Oh, this orange peel will cleanse your," there was something intuitive there that I'd pick up and do. But for years, I'd completely not been engaged in any of that because really my mother had pointed out to me, "Oh, there are witches in the family. You're not to do that stuff because, you're going to bring the devil into the home," type of thing. So I shut it down. She shut it down. I shut it down. So it wasn't until this reawakening I'm picking things up, and it's like I'm sort of intuiting what this does, and then I'm going to books and I'm confirming. And at that point, I'm now buying books in the truckload to read about plants, to learn everything I can about plants. So that experience with the mushrooms really blew my mind wide open because it showed me that nature isn't something to be feared, it's something to be worked with.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
So there's some ancestral lineage, would you say,
yeah,
within your heritage that y-
yeah.
that you connected with in that moment? Because that's what this sounds like.
There definitely are on both the European and the Afro-diasporic sides. The Afro-diasporic, I mean, most Afro-diasporic people, before slavery, they have some kind of connection here that was just cut off during the slave trade. So the lineage that I will connect with now is Ubia, because that's what would have been done in Jamaica and Antigua before that was all shut down by the British in the 1700s. And on the European side, there's a bit of like there's Scottish, there's a there's Scottish witches, there's Jewish Kabbalah witches who are dealing with that sort of thing as well. So
Mm.
it really has just come in from all directions. And
Wow.
I do feel it was intuitive when I was a child, but I shut it down. It wasn't acceptable. It wasn't the right way to be. So I shut them all off.
It's something that would be kind of frowned upon and kind of dismissed, which is what kind
Yeah.
of happened with you and
Yeah.
your mum.
Well, she's still not very keen on it. When I try and talk to her about it, she's like, "Oh no, we don't want to talk about that."
Mm.
But I will point out to her, you know, things and rhythms and patterns that occur, and I think it's a very specific word for a set of skills and set of senses that humans already, I think every single person is already tapped into.
Mm.
It's just some people are willing to say, I'm tapped into this and give it a name.
And
You
it's
know, we don't
fear
just
of
have
the
five
unknown,
senses.
isn't it? It's
Yeah,
really just
it's a
because like
massive
anything,
fear of the unknown.
yeah, anything that we don't know about, it becomes a sense of fear, doesn't it? And then when it's explained to us, then we begin to
Yeah,
understand it and we process what it actually means rather than
yeah,
kind of all the things that we've heard or we're not sure about, and we've then created something in our minds of what it could be.
yeah. This is it. Um, I think being placed into the literal darkness with this talking voice literally plunged me into the unknown. So I came out of the unknown feeling no fear of the unknown, you know?
Mm.
So that allowed me to tap back into those heritages, get initiated properly. So reinstating that in my lineage and moving forward that way. So it's been part initiation, part self study, um, um, relying on elders, part relying on intuition as well, and sort of cross triangulating those things to make sure that it's a really robust practice that I have. And I wouldn't call myself a herbalist. I often get called into places to give talks or to educate about, like, tell me about this herbalism. But for me, it's like it's what we do with our bodies, right? We reduce it to a sum of parts. For me, it's not herbalism what I do. It's understanding that spirit is in everything, and if everything has a vibration and a frequency, we can work with those vibrations and frequencies to pull ourselves to those places. That's all we're doing, managing frequency.
Wow, that's pretty powerful, you know. And like sometimes I know this is like really abstract, but like if you're given something to eat or drink and it's been made or produced with love, you can really feel it. I know it's slightly on a different par, but it's that spiritual kind of realm that kind of comes through into the food or into the drink. Um,
Yeah.
and I
I
mean,
think it's not the same path. It is
oh,
the same
okay.
thing.
All
It's
right.
entirely that.
Yes.
But you can, when like grandma says, "Oh, the secret ingredient was love." You can taste it. You can taste it. You don't
Yeah.
go to McDonald's and feel like this tastes like love.
No.
You feel like this tastes like salt and will fill my belly until the next time I eat a proper meal. You know.
Absolutely. And would you able to then navigate your health through the understanding of what particular plants and using your ancestral roots, um, what works, what doesn't work? Was you able to kind of deal with some of the health issues that you had been experiencing?
Absolutely. So I was on codiadromol tranexamic acid for like years without realizing what it would do to my kidneys and liver until I researched it and then asked my gynecologist like what is doing pain management as well, like what is this doing to my livers and kidneys, and they were like, oh well, we can give you this thing to counteract. It's like, if I didn't ask, were you just going to let it? I was just speechless. It's like, if I did not ask, would you have just let me get liver failure, kidney failure, and then dealt with that as it came along? So dealing with the herbs and working, it's not just the herbs, it's the understanding of trauma and how we're using the herbs to work through trauma in the body to like raise that frequency state from low self-worth to actual self-worth. That was what is important. So some of the herbs I worked with, I started to grow some yarrow in my allotment. That yarrow really helped with the heavy prolonged bleeding, which is what the tranexamic acid was supposed to be dealing with, but really wasn't. Um, when it came to the extreme pain, a combination of ginger, chamomile, and lots of rest whenever I needed that rest. Um, and acknowledging what triggers had come up around that time, that that was really important because that's all linked. So it really just became this sort of method of staircasing and piling one thing onto another to encourage my body to allow it to heal, because it will do it by itself. But if you're going to keep bogging yourself down with not just the wrong food, not just not having your hydration, but if you're around toxic people, or if you're around people that you have to be around, but you're not setting boundaries with them, and you're just constantly having to dim your own authenticity, you are just pumping the hormones and chemicals around your body that maintain that state of protection. I really felt like, I feel like my understanding of the whole illness, which was PCOS, adenomyosis, endometriosis, that's everything I was diagnosed with. My understanding of that is really just, it was a form of protection and suppression. Why would my body want to be in the healthiest state to, if I wanted to, have babies, if I was under constant threat from community, because community wasn't safe, from myself, because I was being very cruel to myself, and unfulfilled because I wasn't doing what humans are here to do, create. We are here to create. If I was allowing myself to be in that terrible situation, then why wouldn't my body start to try and find ways to protect me, but that become maladaptive?
Interesting. And what you've described actually is this whole fusion of sort of creativity with healing, but a lifestyle, because you mentioned the people around you, who you keep company with, your current state of being. So it kind of sounds like a lot of things start from well within before an illness actually manifests.
Yeah,
And I remember when we met in person, that yarrow. I've tried to grow it, but I've ended up ordering
yeah.
it. But I use it, and it so works. And I followed the instructions like a week before, maybe the menstrual bleed, and a week during, and a week
Yeah.
after. Like, and it's so. Listen, at that was like a game changer.
I'm glad it's helped you so much, because honestly it helped me so much. So when I met you at the workshop, I think I started with I'm not a herbalist, I'm not telling you what to do medically. I want you to go out and research these things, but the purpose of this workshop is for you to understand that there are other means, and this is here to spark you to go out and go and find those other means. And once you do find those other means, it is revolutionary, because you do realize, oh my gosh, I've been trapped in this matrix of ideas and I don't need to be here. I can free myself.
Absolutely. We're so conditioned to kind
Mm.
of go down this route of modern medicine and not even thinking about alternatives. I mentioned, our bodies. We're like women of color. We come from different parts of the
Mm.
world, and perhaps the way this medicine has been tested, has it been tested on us? What does it mean for our
Absolutely.
bodies? You know,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that really struck me as well, kind of thinking about alternative ways of healing. And you definitely brought that into my thinking. And I remember leaving the workshop looking at, there's got to be different ways of like healing ourselves. And
Yeah.
and I really took that away, and I have followed that through. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you are.
Absolutely. And if anybody wanted to find you, get hold of you, wanted to find out a little bit more, do you have an Instagram? What's your contact?
I do have an Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at an artist called Love. That's all one word. AN artist called Love. Yeah. And my website is lovehannington.com. And there's information about me on there too. But if you look up Love Hannington on Google, it's not a very common name, I don't reckon. I think you will find me pretty easily.
Beautiful, Love Hannington. Love it. Love your name. It's just full of happiness and joy. Yeah, Absolutely. I want to thank you so much. We definitely need you to come back and let's break down some of the teas and plants and what they do. So definitely we need to have another episode. But for now, I want to thank you for your time, your energy, and wow, your story. It's actually truly amazing. So thank you for being a guest on my podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've had so much fun. I'm really looking forward to, everything you do with this. I think you're doing brilliant work.
Thank you and all the best.